early light, what so proudly we hail, at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight, all the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets' red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof to the night that the flag was still there.
The first ever Wrestlemania took place on Sunday, the 31st of March, 1985, at New York City's Madison Square Garden. That first event featured for the time an impressive list of celebrity guests: Liberace, the Rockettes, and Muhammad Ali, who'd only retired from boxing 4 years previously. Certainly most important for the demographic McMahon was courting were the two celebrity guests who were actually involved as participants in the event: actor Mr. T and pop star Cyndi Lauper. Mr. T was of course Bosco Albert Baracus in the mega hit television show The A-Team, and Lauper was the then current Princess of Pop, riding the wave of her incredibly successful first solo album, 1983's She's So Unusual. Kicking off the event, singing the national anthem was not a celebrity guest. Instead, doing the honors was backstage WWF interviewer Mean Gene Okerlund. Okerlund's performance was, well, he got through it. He asked the crowd to join in, and they didn't really. So he just finished it, and he got out of there. If what you like is that song being performed well, then it's just bad. If what you like is Gene Okerlund being charming, well, the performance was charming in its badness. But why was Gene, of all people, the one to do the anthem? Well, he volunteered to do so because the company and the event were in a bind. There was a celebrity guest scheduled to sing the anthem beforehand, but that celebrity guest no-showed the event. The company has never disclosed who this was. Not Vince McMahon, not Gene Okerlund, nobody involved has ever publicly identified the musician who no-showed the first WrestleMania and their scheduled appearance to sing the Star-Spangled Banner. This mystery has persisted for 40 years now. It outlived Okerlund, it will almost certainly outlive McMahon. After Vince, probably the only living person who knows who it was, I would guess, is Jesse Ventura. And if either man was going to disclose it, it stands to reason they would have by now. But I think I know who it was. What follows is admittedly conjecture and guesswork based on publicly available information. I have connected the dots in ways that some of you may find to be an unpersuasive leap of faith. I don't say that to weaken my argument, but rather to strengthen your trust in me as an historian and a narrator. I don't know for a certainty who it was. The number of people who ever knew was limited to McMahon's inner brain trust, and that number has dwindled with the passing decades. But I believe I have a persuasive argument to make based on the available evidence. I believe that it was Prince. At the time of the first WrestleMania, Prince was winding down the now legendary Purple Rain Tour, featuring primarily music from the film Purple Rain, released the summer of the previous year. The tour began November 4th of 1984 with a series of shows at Detroit's Joe Louis Arena, and concluded April 7th of 1985 with one show at the Miami Orange Bowl. On March 30th of 1985, Prince held a concert at the Syracuse Carrier Dome. This was kind of a big deal back then, as this was where they filmed the official concert video for the Purple Rain Tour. This video was available on VHS for decades, but then was unavailable for years, at the behest of Prince himself, who was famously maniacal in his desire to own and control his own artistic output. The Syracuse March 30th concert has experienced a resurgence of fame in the internet era, though, and has since been remastered and released digitally. On the 1st of April, Prince had his next and fourth to last tour date in Indianapolis at the Market Square Arena. You wrestling historians will note a suspiciously open date here, the 31st of March. Prince was a 4-hour drive away from WrestleMania 1 the night before, and didn't have anywhere to be that day. That was a day off. Here are the tour dates of the Purple Rain Tour from March 1985. The 31st is open. I also cross-checked the non-tour dates that he played in March 1985, which include the 20th in the Bronx, the 26th in Hartford, and the 28th in Worcester? I'm sure that's pronounced Worcester. Somebody's going to call me out on that. We're going to go with Worcester. If you look at canceled dates for the Purple Rain Tour, you have the 6th through the 8th in Tempe, Arizona, and the 23rd and the 24th in Ames, Iowa. Again, nothing on the 31st. The 31st of March is, according to history, completely free and clear in Prince's schedule in 1985. Just look at this part of the Purple Rain Tour. Show, day off. Show, day off. Show, day off. Show, day off, show. The only break in the pattern is 30 and 31st of March and the 1st of April. The Syracuse show, followed by a day off, followed by the Indianapolis show. And yet, I hear what you're saying, dear viewer. I can hear your objection through your computer monitor. Syracuse is a good long way away from Indianapolis. On a direct flight, it's less than 3 hours, but Prince and the Revolution were taking a tour bus around the country. A bus that sold privately a few years ago, in fact. And that drive, doing the speed limit, is about 10 hours. From New York City, it's even longer, almost 12. That's a heck of a long haul. And indeed, every time on that tour that the band had to travel that far, they took a day off. Every time they went to a new geographic location in the country, to a different region, that is to say, there was at least one day off in between. Well, that's it for the Prince at Wrestlemania theory, I suppose.
But wait, there's more!
Friends, as I was looking into this theory, I at first couldn't get over the issue of the 31st being a travel day. In 2022, Bobby Z, the drummer of the Revolution, discussing the famous Syracuse show, even points specifically to the 31st being a travel day. And it just makes sense. No good reason Prince would commit to do WrestleMania if he had to drive to Indianapolis literally that night. However, I got to thinking about that Indianapolis show. Why was it there? They were already in the Midwest around Christmas time. Why didn't they do it then? They tended to do all of a region's dates before moving on, as does any touring entertainment act. Normal progression is to go from A to B to C to D, not to go from A to C to D and then briefly go back to B for one show. Why would you do that? Well, here is the answer. Before giving up on this video idea, I decided to look into the April 1st Indianapolis show one more time. And it turns out the Indianapolis show was originally scheduled for December 14th, 1984, but it was rescheduled for April 1st, 1985. Look, people's tickets still say December 14th. The reason is that the Rosemont shows were so successful that they wanted to add another date, which they did. Here is where the Indianapolis show was supposed to be, which makes a lot more sense in terms of travel. Without that random Indianapolis show on April 1st, Prince goes from his Northeast tour in March down to Florida the first week of April, finishing out the tour, leaving almost a full week in between shows and plenty of time to get to WrestleMania and do the national anthem. However, he couldn't because of that rescheduled Indianapolis show. It's conceivable that he agreed to the WrestleMania appearance in the previous fall, and then the concert managers rescheduled Indianapolis for April 1st, therefore meaning that he no longer had time to be in Madison Square Garden on March 31st, giving him a good motive to cancel. Or, as it has come down to us in history, no show.
But how do you know about them?
Elementary, my dear Watson.
It might be fair to ask, coming off Purple Rain, if Prince was simply too big for WrestleMania. And the answer is no. If Mr. T and Prince's very good friend Cyndi Lauper were not too big for wrestling, then neither was he. In the famous April 1985 Sports Illustrated with Hulk Hogan on the cover, Prince is mentioned in the story as a celebrity who might next get involved with wrestling. It's meant in jest and it's not really in a flattering light, but the joke only makes sense if it's conceivable that Prince would be involved with the World Wrestling Federation. And oh yeah, Prince and Cyndi Lauper were very close friends. Another good reason for him to potentially say yes to the WrestleMania booking. Get to go hang out with Cyndi in New York before finishing out the tour in Florida. It would make an even better case for Prince to be the mystery WrestleMania no-show if he were a wrestling fan. So was Prince a wrestling fan? It would appear that the answer was yes. After he passed, among the extraordinary volume of unreleased music found in his vault was a documentary about Coco Beware, narrated by Morris Day, of Morris Day and the Time. Also in the vault was an unreleased hard rock project called Bockwinkel, presumably named for former AWA World Champion Nick Bockwinkel. Prince worked on the project with Bob Mould, who was on WCW's writing staff in 1999. There was also a project in the vault called The Undertaker, which we don't know if that was a reference to the wrestling Undertaker. It could be a coincidence. But the major pop culture reference for that word in 1994, when Prince wrote it, was the WWF Undertaker. It's certainly possible that it was a coincidence, but when you said that word in the 1990s, you were probably talking about the wrestling guy.
Chinkies, oh, Chinkies.
Okay, so if he wasn't too big of a star for wrestling, do we have any good reason to believe that Prince would have accepted such a booking? Well, dear viewer, the answer is yes. The American Wrestling Association promoted their own supercard Wrestle Rock in April of 1986, 2 weeks after WrestleMania 2, at the Metrodome in Minneapolis, Minnesota, at the time the home of the Vikings, the Twins, and the University of Minnesota Golden Gophers. The magazine International Wrestling News reported that on their April 6th episode, AWA announced that Prince might sing the national anthem at Wrestle Rock, at a stadium wrestling card almost a year to the day after WrestleMania 1. Huh. Here is AWA owner and promoter Vern Gagne, quoted in the Minneapolis Star-Tribune, April 11th, 1986. "We thought we would ask him to sing the national anthem. To be honest, I don't have the faintest idea if he'll show up. I see your huh, and I'll raise you a huh." Now, some of you are saying right now that the AWA was based in Minnesota, and Prince was at the time and perhaps is still today one of the most famous Minnesotans. He is as associated with Minnesota as Sinatra is with Vegas, and that is true. I am not arguing with that. But just some more context of the wrestling landscape at this time. Other promoters in the country absolutely were aware that McMahon was committed to a hostile takeover and trying to put them out of business. When Vern Gagne made this comment, did he know that Prince had canceled on McMahon? Vince McMahon had raided Vern Gagne's talent pool for almost the entire core of stars that would make up the WWF Golden Age. Did Vern make that comment about Prince canceling specifically as a shot at McMahon losing Prince the year before?
So what really happened that day? Let's just for a moment speculate, shall we?
So there's my case, take it or leave it. Prince was in the geographic area to conveniently pop over and do Wrestlemania. He did not have a show on that day. He would have had time for the Wrestlemania booking if not for a tour reschedule. And if he canceled on Vince, it was almost certainly because of that very reschedule. We have established that he was good pals with Cyndi Lauper, the other big music star at the event. And we have established that he at least liked some wrestlers and some things about wrestling. We established that he was at least in talks to sing the national anthem at a wrestling super show 1 year later. Probably largely because Prince was a native Minnesotan and loved his home state, but also possibly in the context of Vern Gagne trying to stick it to McMahon.
Oh, one other thing.
In closing, if there's one thing we know about Vince McMahon, it's that he's a petty man-child with a sophomoric sense of humor. You all thought I was going to say something else. Settle down, everybody. It's not that kind of video. Remember, this is a man who thinks the funniest thing in the world is shoving somebody into a pool who does not want to be in that pool. He was, of course, never above using his TV time to make fun of somebody who was annoying him, who he perceived as having slighted him. From Ted Turner to Phil Mushnick to President Bill Clinton. Anyway, on a note completely unrelated to Vince's childish sense of humor and need to get back at those who slighted him, here is a clip from Tuesday Night Titans, July 1985, 3 months after WrestleMania 1, to play us out. Special thanks to my buddy Ed for first mentioning this theory to me. Be good, kiddos. Peace out. Thanks for watching.
As I said before, Prince has agreed to perform. Now bear in mind, this group over here is not the revolution. But Prince is going to try it anyway. Ladies and gentlemen, Prince.